Some stories don't need exaggeration to be frightening. They chill us because they are too real, too close to the core of human nature. And among them is a tale that begins with two brothers, but ends with the first fracture in human history caused by jealousy, sin, and exile. In those days, the world was still young. The sky was blue as if freshly painted, and the earth carried the lingering warmth of the Creator's hands. In that pristine silence, two sons grew up under the guidance of sunlight and wind, Cain and Abel. Cain, the elder, was strong, quiet, always carrying the smell of soil and sweat from working the fields. The long furrows before him were more than labor. They were his pride. Every grain that sprouted felt like a reward for his toil. Abel, the younger, was gentler, with clear, kind eyes and a soft demeanor like the sheep he tended. Wherever Abel stood, the earth seemed softer, the breeze calmer. In nature, he heard subtle rhythms that few could perceive, the breath of life itself. The two brothers grew like branches from the same tree, reaching in different directions but sharing one root. They talked, worked, ate, and laughed together until one day, the season of offering came. It was a solemn time when humans gave the Creator what was most precious to them. For Cain, that was the produce he had sown and nurtured with his callous hands. For Abel, it was the firstborn of his flock, the very best of what he had lovingly cared for. Cain approached the altar with quiet hope. Abel came after him, carrying the warmth of the flock he had tended. Then something strange happened. The fire on Abel's altar flared bright and strong, as if the wind itself bowed to ignite it. Meanwhile, Cain's offering burned weakly, flickering as though the flame refused his command. Cain watched, and in a single moment, just one moment, his eyes darkened. Everyone said Cain was strong. But there is something stronger than muscle, and far more dangerous: wounded pride. He had worked the soil with effort. He had given from his labor. And now Abel was accepted over him. The wind swept across the fields, but couldn't cool the heat rising in Cain's chest. Abel looked at him with the same gentle gaze as always. He didn't know that this only irritated Cain further. Abel's gentleness was like a mirror reflecting what Cain tried to hide, a pride beginning to crumble. The Creator spoke to Cain. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. Cain heard, but inside him, the roar of jealousy was louder than the warning. One evening, when the sun burned red like a coal, Cain called Abel into the field. "Come with me for a moment," he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Abel followed without suspicion. He still trusted his brother, as he always had. He didn't know that from the moment the offerings were accepted, an invisible fracture had spread between them. They walked far, into a place touched only by wind and grass. No one knows what their final words to each other were. History only records what happened next. Cain, in a violent surge of envy, struck his brother. Abel fell, and he never rose again. It was the first human blood spilled by human hands. The wind blew colder. Daylight dimmed. The Creator asked, "Cain, where is your brother Abel?" Cain answered with a sentence that would echo through all ages. "Am I my brother's keeper?" But the earth beneath him, soaked with Abel's blood, could not stay silent. It cried out, and Cain, the first to shed blood, could not escape the consequences. The Creator declared, "The ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood will no longer yield crops for you. You will become a restless wanderer on the earth." Cain trembled. All his anger dissolved, leaving only fear. He begged for mercy. But the sentence was set. He would not die, nor be erased. He would live, carrying the weight of his sin.
And from that day, Cain became a wanderer. Each step he took was a reminder: sin does not begin with action, but with a quiet ember smoldering in the heart.
Where did Cain go? Who did he become? Some believe Cain wandered eastward, into the land of Nod, a place never clearly described in any ancient text. Perhaps it was not a real geographical region, but a symbol of restlessness, a realm where no soul could find peace, where the feet of the guilty would never discover a final home. They imagined Cain walking alone through endless plains of reddish dust, beneath a sun that never softened, with the wind whispering the same question over and over. Why? Why? But others tell a different tale. They say that Cain, after committing humanity's first act of wrath, was not merely cursed, but became the first human to taste separation from divine grace. And this loneliness forced him to rebuild himself. Perhaps when he reached the furthest place his feet could carry him, Cain began to understand that living on was not punishment, it was responsibility. Maybe he erected the first shelters, learned to rise from rubble, and eventually became the ancestor of a city, the very first city ever built by human hands, marked by both guilt and regret. Audiences offer bolder theories too. If Cain was the first to harbor fear and guilt, was he also the first to truly understand human nature? What did he see in those desolate lands? Who did he meet in a time before history had words to record it? Or was he entirely alone, living a long, unbroken life, haunted by the memory of that single fateful moment? Some suggest that Cain, carrying the protective mark from the Creator, became a paradox, untouchable. No one could kill him, yet no one dared come close. It was the most terrifying kind of safety, being allowed to live, but only at the edge of human existence, watching the generations after him build what he, the firstborn of mankind, could never claim as his own. Whatever we speculate, Cain remains a shadowy figure on the threshold between sin and redemption. Perhaps this very ambiguity keeps his story from ever truly ending. For who knows, maybe the footsteps of the wandering Cain still echo somewhere in history, in the earliest civilizations, in forgotten ancient cities that humans built and abandoned.
The story of Cain and Abel is not just a distant past. It is a mirror reflecting the darkest corners of the human heart: jealousy, pride, resentment, and the consequences of letting emotion conquer reason. But this is only one piece of a much larger picture. Behind Cain lies a long journey, descendants, legacies, and mysteries left untold.